Welcome back to Theraphase Biofield Tuning. I am your host, Shauna Mayfield. Today, we will be continuing to explore the landscape of biofield tuning as it intersects within the realms of telepathy and autism. This themed conversation began with the Telepathy Tapes podcast and the 2 previous articles I posted on my website at theraphasebiofield.tuning.com. So be sure to check those out and listen to the previous videos that share reflections from other biofield tuners. I have another lovely guest to introduce to you, and her name is Mary McGillivray. Mary's lifelong quest to search for what makes people thrive has led her to the power and beauty of biofield tuning under the guidance of founder Eileen McCusick. With understanding, compassion, warmth, and humor, Mary helps clients overcome emotional blocks and put to rest deep-seated issues so that they can become the architects of the life that they yearn to live. Over the years, she has become not only a practitioner, but an instructor of the biofield tuning modality. As a speech-language pathology assistant for 10 years, Mary has worked with children on the autism spectrum and children with other cognitive and physical challenges. She welcomes working with clients of all ages and abilities. And in her words, biofield tuning is a healing you can hear through the music of vibration. So we're going to welcome her on next. Stay tuned.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, hey, cool. Nice to see you and meet you and have you on. I guess I don't know why I wasn't expecting that you wouldn't want to come on. It's just, I would never get a teacher to come and talk to me. Who do you think you are, trying to reach out to people and talk about stuff?
Oh, that's hilarious. No way. Guess what I just did? I reached out to Dr. Diane Hennessey today.
Ooh, wow.
Because she lives right in Portland, right?
Okay.
And I thought, why not? Why not? I told her, I said, I'm a sound therapist who uses a protocol called Biofield Tuning. I use tuning forks as coherent inputs to release tension in the body and in the biofield surrounding the body. Prior to this work, I worked as an SLPA in a high school and worked with these students on that spectrum and also nonverbals. And I believe that this work that I now do could support them in becoming more embodied and integrating.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it takes those big steps, just walking in there and saying, this is what I do. What do you think of this? You want to check it out?
What the heck, to me, it makes sense I've always wanted to work with a clinician, and I don't know if that was the right term to use for a doctor, but what I'm meaning is just that whole approach, which I don't encompass.
Yeah, I understand that there's something about that makes it that's the bridge, part of the bridge building and working that we're doing is walking into those places, even naturopathic doctors, chiropractic offices, massage. There's so many overlays where it's like what Gregory Glick was saying, that he was going to put together these pamphlets and just say, hey, you might want to check this out. It could be really supportive for your clients and we'll support each other's work. Helps them on that other side. It's new still. So anyway, we're kind of jumping right in there into this whole conversation. This is turning into a little podcast discussion group, which I'm really excited to be a part of. It's new and evolving. So thank you for being here. I'm going to share just really briefly, again, my intentions for creating or hosting these conversations, which is for ideas and experiences to be shared and new connections to be made, generating greater contextual understanding and inspiration, leading the way into a harmonious shift within and without. I know that's a lot of words, but I think there's something important about speaking those words and just making that intention really clear where I'm coming from.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, thank you. I shared a little bit of your background just straight from your website, your mission statement there, which was really beautifully put out there. But I also would love for you to share where you're at with your practice of biofield tuning and how it's going with balancing teaching and practicing and what's going on.
Yeah, I guess the connection to this group might be that background that I had, which was being an assistant speech language pathologist in the schools, which I did hands-on work with the students, which was great. And I saw that as a way of really connecting with people in a way I was interested in. And it was a good journey, but this is actually it. Biofield tuning is really the way of connecting that I was looking for, because it's so profound and a lot of reasons that you guys are familiar with already. Yeah, and so it was great to learn about Eileen, and I lived in Vermont. She was only 30 minutes away. I got to go right in there and work with her in these early days. I guess that was 2017 when it was all in one room, shipping everything in this, and it looked homemade, but so it's been fun to see the progression. I stepped out away from the school within that year. I really moved quickly. I took my first, we used to do level 1, 2, and 3 in the day. And so I learned about it in September, took my first class in October, my second class in November. And then I had to wait for Eileen to get back from Jamaica because she's so smart. About leaving Vermont for a bit in the winter. Yeah. And but so by March I was certified, and by mid-June I was done with the school, and people were like, "You're what?" And I'm a standalone biofield tuner. Like, I don't have Reiki or acupuncture or massage or anything. I did it, but full disclosure, because I'm pretty transparent, I do want to say that I had some help from alimony to cushion me along. So I don't want to be reckless in saying, go do that, because it does take work.
I think that's an important point to make, Mary, actually, because it does take work. And yeah, you just have to put in, just like with any other business. And it's very challenging, like with the line of work this is. It's just so hard to, but so yeah, give yourself that leeway, something to help you along.
Yeah, but for sure. So one of my favorite cards in the tarot is the Fool card, and I just am that kind of, I love to just step out there, so I'm not fear of risk averse, and I was really fueled by just the posture that Eileen takes that I call unapologetic. She just is doing it. And people at the school, like I said, or people in general, you're doing what? You're doing. And I really paid it no mind. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. They're not there yet. I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm just living my life. So I think that's really an important approach. But yeah, building a practice was a challenge. I've never done that before. I always worked for schools, institutions. So it's still a work in progress, honestly. But I got a chance to get trained as an instructor. They had a whole wave. It was a whole new way of them doing it, and it was pretty intensive. And there was about 12 of us that went through at that time, maybe. A few have gone different ways, but yeah, that was very challenging, but very gratifying. And I thought they were very thoughtful in giving my first class to me in Portland, which is where I grew up. So I was still living in Vermont, but they gave me a class to teach in Portland, and I felt like I could come home and say, look what I have.
Yeah, look what I brought home. Oh, that is sweet.
Really sweet. So I got 2 under my belt. The next one was in Florida before COVID. And so the brakes screech on, and we had to figure out how to get this. We didn't know what to do for a while, right? Like everybody. And then once we figured out we got to get it online, it was like, how is that going to work?
Yeah.
Super crazy. But many of you have gone through it, and it worked. And I have a cool story of how the protocol just is there for us. And I ask the protocol questions. I dialogue with it, and when I ask it a question, it always delivers. And it delivered an answer where I could actually see an artifact on someone's practice body. And I'm like, how is that possible through Zoom? But it is, so believe it.
Yeah, it's amazing. The openness is so key, because you don't know if you just put yourself into the child wonder of, I wonder what happened. It amazes you.
Great approach to this work in general, right? Yeah. Yeah, so been doing that, and it is a nice balance. Right now I do one-on-ones through my private practice. I'm also in the clinic, and that opens it up to, it's 98%, 99% at a distance, because I live in the mountains, and it's just easy. COVID was a blessing in that way, right? I love that, but then it's really great. And I'm doing a group session, stepping into that, which is a good thing to explore as well. But then seeing a class transform is just so delightful. And my colleagues are great to work with, so I love collaborating. So I feel like I got it all. I feel really fortunate.
Oh, yeah. It seems like such a family vibe with the tuning teachers. I did my training all online, and you were a guest on one of them. But yeah, beautiful people. Marielle was one of the teachers, Shannon Brooks, and it just was very warm and welcoming, and just felt like a home kind of a situation. And the people, the other tuners, even, everybody's just so willing to exchange and share what they're learning and how they're going along with it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it can be really moving to see people arrive there and have never been in a community like this and feel so much support. They're just moved to tears. This is what it's about. This is the future, I believe. So
I'm with you on that.
I want more and more of that out there.
Yeah, for sure, Mary. I was just responding to somebody's comment on one of my posts with the video of Gregory Glick, and it was just a really beautiful, nice comment that he made. And I said, I feel really connected strongly to the morphogenic field of biofield tuning. And I guess part of what my mission is to be like a messenger, almost like I get a lot of return out of that, just to be able to share and talk about it. And it gives more context to what other people are experiencing too. I would imagine, so like what you're saying with teaching and watching that transition, and just directly firsthand how it's impacting people's lives.
Yeah, it's really cool. It sounds like you're a true ambassador, so thank you.
Yes, I would say that was definitely a word I came up with. I was writing notes. I go, this is like Biofield Tuning ambassador program or something. Like it could turn into something, which was a point I was going to make, actually. Would be super helpful for the whole to have people who are willing to do those workshops, presentations, going out to the library, like Eileen always says that she started doing. Just go to the libraries, even in places, just start talking to people. Put together those pamphlets of information, and do the little demos at farmers markets and stuff, and just get out there.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like Greg has great success. I have not, but I'm thinking about my colleague, Lori Rhodes, who I know Lori would do something like, before she does it, she would probably bless it, so to speak, and say, may the people who need me find me, or something like that. So I think that's a good, it just came to my mind. And it's a great resource, because I think what also Eileen has brought forward is a great example of how to use our directive minds. We have these amazing things, these minds that are so directive, and that's what a lot of this is.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when we get into doing distance tuning, that it is so much about your focus and your intention and just setting up that space. And because everything else, it gets in the way mentally, your mind just wants to just get in there and start what are you doing? This is so weird. There's nobody here.
I feel so weird. But there's a couple things that I like to encourage people with as they're learning it. I would like to say, you've got the protocol, so just stand as if, and it'll start falling in. And then the other thing, the thing to keep in mind is to be careful of agendas, because that'll bite you in the butt. If you've had me as an instructor, I definitely say that, and I've seen it, and it's, you gotta watch that.
What if somebody were to go into a session thinking, no, I'm going to go in there and do this thing. I'm going to go for that.
I have a great example of a guy it was a guy in class, and his practice body was his wife, and he's a really physical guy. He's a body worker. He's very active and energy kind of dude, just really great. He gets in there, and what came up was the right side of her throat. Okay. And he's in there, and he's just really being noisy and being showy, and I said, you're not listening to her field. Ironically, it was the right throat, which is speaking and not being heard. So it was a total theme, and he was so great about it. He's, oh, yeah, you're right. And then he said, you know what? I was trying to impress her. So that was the agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Good example. Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing that. And it's so true. I check myself too regularly because you want to make sure it's about them. It's always going to be about them. And so,
yeah. And I know that I can get intimidated with doctors or people that are really accredited on all that. And so I got to watch that and just go, we can all benefit here. So let's be open, including myself, to allowing this accredited person to have this experience that I can help bring. They'll benefit. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah, it is. It is all good. There isn't anything wrong with what you're doing. It's no harm. It's all in the best intentions. And most of the time, it's just there's so much profound results. People it's shifting their realities, their bodies, their way that they're in the body. Just that it's almost hard to put a finger on it, really, but I think that maybe the most common and the best, maybe not the best, but like people say, they become more like themselves, which is back to this concept of wholeness and bringing light back in. And so it's the whole unit. And so that's hard to describe because it's different for everybody.
Yeah. And for people that haven't experienced it, I would say another thing that I can share with you as an instructor is especially the distance classes or not virtual classes where they're just using a family member or a friend or something like that. And I think the majority of people are so drenched in dissonance and just like noise and crud that when they get some of this, they're like, oh my gosh, like it's pretty. And so that's really fun for me to see because I actually came to Biofield Tuning just out of curiosity. Like I'm pretty healthy. I'm somewhat coherent. I think I was more scattered and my nervous system was a little jacked up, but it's just been fascinating. That's my draw. A lot of times you hear people like chase after medical things for so long, and this is finally the solution. But I'm just like, I just want to be next to this. It's so cool.
Yeah, so. It is. I like that too. I suppose it's just like, what is this? What are we talking about here? Eileen's talking about plasma and ether, electric universe. Anyway, it was just, I was like, that's my thing.
Yeah. A practitioner that I trade with, and it's a great balance because being an instructor, especially in foundations, like that's all I was teaching for a while. And it's like, you stand here, you do, it's a little bit on the rigid side, you know, and I'm like, ooh, I got to loosen up. And she's an artist and she just loves me. And I love being tuned by her. But at one point she said, ether is love. And I just was like,
wow, yeah.
Yes. And I was actually listening to the telepathy tapes today, and I think the 10th one was so much about that. When we got to hear from them, that is their message through and through and through. It's about returning to love and the power of it. So I'm also dedicated to using that word more and using it with clients and just the realization of the power of it.
Yeah, that you're using the word more even. It's important. And it's changing almost the definition of it. It's to expanding this whole definition of love. What is that? I brought it up in the first conversation I had with the Biofield Tuning panel. And I shared a quote from Albert Einstein, and he was talking about the unifying force of love. And I don't know if you've read the quote. I'll share it with you again. I'm not going to read it, but go look it up. It's a letter to his daughter. It's so beautiful, and it brought tears to my eyes. Even my husband, he was reading, he's like, what is this? Why didn't I get this earlier in my life? But it's totally speaking to that. And so that's interesting. You mentioned that this ether and love connection, that makes a lot of sense. This unified field, and it's just is tying into so many things. Walter Russell's work is all about that as well. And it's bringing a lot of science into it as well. But he's saying, yeah, that's pretty much it, folks. The fundamental nature of the universe is love. We're just like, what? Okay, what's that? Now we need to know what that really is, and in a different way, and experience it and really feel that.
It's true. And I feel so privileged to be in someone's field. And really, I fall in love with students and clients constantly. And it's such a great state to be in and to mirror that back to them, their essence. I think that's the kind of tuner that I am. And it's just so delightful to just peel that stuff away and go, there you are, you know. So fun.
Yeah, that's nice. That is true. I do feel that as well. Just there's some kind of bond happening there. Wow, I'm really seeing people, their trueness, their whole essence. And yeah, it does change things.
Yeah, and even saying I fall in love with my students and my clients can sound weird, but I'm part of wanting to change that definition too, because it doesn't mean I'm in some weird relationship with them. Yeah. No, but I'm living love. And it helps me see things differently too. So it's really important.
Yeah, exactly. It's time to integrate that word in a whole new way. Everybody take it in a different way and play around with it. And yeah, it'll change you. In the theme too, I really want to hear what you think overall, just general reflections and response about the telepathy tapes. Obviously, it's a big buzz, and we've been trying to find where does biofield tuning align with this. So there's a lot of questions about that. But let's first hear your response to the whole podcast, or what you thought of it.
Yeah, it was fun to learn about. A friend of mine told me about him, and it's what I lived, because I did facilitated communication with a nonverbal when I was back in Vermont there. And so the time frame would be around 2012 or so. I worked there for 10 years, and I worked with her for a good, I don't know, many years. It was like 4 or 5 years or something like that. And I'd never done facilitated communication, is what they call it, when we support them in typing. But it was profound. The day that I met her, she just looked at me and then typed out painfully with one finger, I just need some support in getting my thoughts out into the world, or something like that. And I just went, I am so neglectful or I'm just like messy about that myself. I just let things fall out of my mouth and patch them up along the way. And I was like, oh my God, she is my teacher, clearly.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And so as we worked together, it's true, her language was just full and beautiful. She never abbreviated for efficiency or whatever. And so we had a good bond. I had been brought in because she'd had a relationship with another support person that was falling apart. And so it was really cool, because by the time I finished working with her, I could she was working with 2 hands. And I could just stand behind her with a hand on the shoulder, more or less, for her graduation events that she did for people. And so it was a great accomplishment. She was really driven. But I do know that I was absolutely viewed, so to speak, right? So she read me like a book. And one day she made it super apparent, because my mom had died over Memorial Weekend. And I came in, the first thing she did was, I'm so sorry about your mother, or something. I'm like,
oh, wow. Before you said anything, she just knew.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I played around with it. One time I was supporting her, and I was trying to figure out the source. I don't know, but because I think it was a mashup of some sort. But in my head, I held a crazy word. It was from Alice in Wonderland, a crazy word, and that wouldn't be a part of anything that she's doing in school. And there it was. And I'm like,
wow.
Okay, you need to do your work. So I personally was okay being an open book, but it's not something I could say in the school. I really kept it locked down. The speech pathologist said, let's just keep this.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit complicated, because in middle school, she had worked with an untrained facilitator, and they ventured into a conversation about abuse.
Oh.
And if you're in a school, you are an obligated reporter. Yeah. And so it opened up this horrible can of worms for the family that was just hideous and eventually proven untrue, but it was horrible. And so the parents were super cautious too. And so I had railings to work within the school.
Yeah, yeah. That's some of the challenges, of course, that keeps those gates up and the walls up. Like, we're not going to do this. Were you finding that the teacher you were working with was willing to share with you her experiences with any telepathy or things like that?
Yeah, it was interesting because she was open to it. She didn't experience that so much herself, but she knew that her and I were special. She was actually the one that hired me to work with her. And so she had a sense, I think, that I could be the container for it. And she totally supported me. And we did a lot with her motor planning because it was like she was in locked-in syndrome as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but I had to keep it under wraps. And I've been dying to reach out to her as an adult and say, can we connect again? Because I think that would be great. And I think I might try.
Yeah, it's changed. It's shifted already. This podcast is doing a lot of that as well. And then it's just making it more accessible because there are so many people who are having these things happen and who are researching it. Susie Miller and her work that she's putting out there. There's a lot of people that have been doing it for a long time already, and they've just been not heard of. It's not getting anywhere. But I think you should, because it's a new time, new openings. There's a big shift happening, and people are more receptive to it. And it could be just the perfect time.
I have something related that I think would be, it's actually got Biofield Tuning in it because it was an early session that I did with a woman who reached out to me who had a nonverbal child and asked for a distance session. And so I said, sure. And so while we're doing the distance session, so the mom is facilitating and being the communicator. So while that was happening, and the mother was a clairvoyant. She gives readings for people and stuff like that. So I was doing the session, and then the mom starts to give a reading of me, which was really intriguing, but it was like, no, this is not the time. This is about her. This is your daughter's session. So we need to focus on that. And so I clarified that. And then shortly after, the daughter's awareness came into mine and started communicating to me telepathically. And I was like, okay, this is more efficient. Let's do this. And that seemed to work fine. And then the session was over. And then a couple hours later, she came in again. And I said, nope, the session is over. And this is something that I want to talk to you guys about. And it's something that I feel like I want to include in the telepathy tape somehow or reach out to them, because I think it's really important to have that sovereignty. So when I was first listening to the tapes, the first few, it was sensational almost. It was like, this is amazing. And people were a little freaked out about it, understandably. But I think what can help everybody is just being aware of that sovereignty about, yes, I'm open to this and when, but otherwise, I get to have my privacy. And that's what I wanted to bring to the table about.
That's a really important point to make, because it just brings it home back to the biofield, which is that you do have that sovereignty and you have that awareness of the outer edge, your boundary, your field. And it's a permeable membrane where you're letting in what you want in, and you really do have to set the dial for what's not allowed in. And that goes for all kinds of other energies and entities and beings, other people's energies and people who might be wanting to. There's so many different ways that we can get those interference signals, and it can be confusing if you're not used to knowing the difference of discerning energies and what is this me, is this them, whose thoughts are that? And that brings it to the need maybe for this background training, developing stronger protection for yourself, and training, really, just to have the skill to do this kind of work in that way, in a professional way, really, where you have to have the boundaries.
Yeah, we see a lot of students come in because they're empathic and they're really permeable. I guess you could say, which is great. I remember when I first started training, I said to Eileen, I'm like, I'm getting so sensitive, I can hardly go to the store. What do I do with it? And she says, this is what you do with it. So we've got this great container, and we talk a lot about energy hygiene and that kind of thing. So I think it's a gift. It does that 180 of, oh, this is really hard to manage and work with. It's actually a gift. So let me find something to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely part of the whole hygiene routine. And even more when you do the tuning work, you do become more sensitive. You're listening more. Everything's deep listening. You're like, oh, wait, I don't want to deep listen to everything. I play around with dials. How much do I want to tune into? What do I want to tune into? You do have to take control over all of that stuff. And so it's just working with a new unit, maybe just expanding your awareness into your biofield is super cool. That's one thing that I'm really thankful for with just learning in the educational part of what is this biofield? What can we do with it? Wow, it's really amazing. You can create all kinds of ways to protect yourself and attract, using it for magnetism or in radiating. I love Eileen's example of, what are you doing attaching to all these energies and empathizing with these people? You need to just radiate like a bug zapper. None of that stuff can touch you.
Yeah, and I love that because we can see things. That's what we're trained in. We can see, I used to see the heaviness of people. I still do. And so what I do is, oh, there they are. They are just doing their best. So I give them love bombs and send them on their way. Stay detached and just love up on them.
That's a switch up for sure. That in the tuning has helped train me differently. Instead of feeling like, okay, I'm going to defend when I walk into Walmart, I'm going to defend. Shields up. It's a totally different perspective walking around. It's so much more at ease and relaxed and fun and playful.
Yeah, and respectful of them, because I think I was in judgment a lot. Ooh, that doesn't look fun. Why would you do that? Don't do that. And it's like, hold on.
I'm like that. I'm working on that one. So this love conversation is good.
It's challenging. I know when I first found this, I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many good answers here. Let me just, and then I had to just like, you know what? They need to be ready. I had a funny story where a woman came into the clinic, and the clinic was pretty new and they hadn't worked out their language entirely. So she came from Long Island on her way to Canada and thought she was going to have a session with Eileen. And I showed up.
Oh no.
She was not happy. She was not happy. And that was a very difficult session because she was in resistance.
Yeah.
And, oh boy, this is not fun at all.
Yeah. Wow. I wonder if she came back and saw things. Yeah, so many stories, different ways of responding to the work, and resistance definitely will put the brakes on a lot of what you're available to, really.
Yeah.
So great. Let me look at my questions here. So we talked a little bit about ideas or guidance for biofield tuning practitioners as to how to approach the intersection working with autism and how we can best represent biofield tuning principles when doing this work. And you mentioned that sovereignty is super important. Is there any other tips for techniques and ways to go about doing the tuning itself? I've talked with Gregory a little bit and other tuners, and we all have generalized this, obviously a slow, less is more approach. I was thinking of it more like maybe it's a sound play open session kind of thing where they turn it around and be like, you teach me how to tune you. So is that appropriate for biofield tuners to?
I think so. I think it depends the age group you're doing, because one of the other instructors, Holly, she tunes a lot of kids. They're probably neurotypical. You can give them the fork and just let them explore and experiment with that. So I think definitely, and who knows, you might get really amazing information about what the fork is and what we're doing, because hopefully we're staying pretty humble about what biofield tuning is, because it's still evolving continuously. It's really a leading edge, which I love about it too. But yeah, I thought that was a great approach that you had written. Either you or Greg had come up with this kind of playful approach to it, I think is ideal. And less is more. I don't have a ton of experience of working with people, unfortunately, even though I invite it, but people on the spectrum. I worked with a young man, he was back east, and it was a distant session, and he was really fired up constantly. He was easily distracted, and I think an in-person session would have been ideal for him. He just needed the forks on the body, I think, to help reset. Yeah. And speaking of reset, a little friendly reminder, you guys probably know about how the weighted forks, we can just let it run down completely, and that can be a nice reset for a system.
Would you recommend, or not so much, putting the forks maybe even direct? Because I know with the head, it's this very sensitive area, but I'm wondering if maybe that is a good place to go early on, just even out with the weighted forks, not touching the head, but out here.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it depends on, everybody tolerates differently, especially this population. So yeah, I think that could be a great, because it is helping balance and bring calm.
So much. Yeah. The Schumann pair, especially, I would feel you can feel it immediately syncing you up and relaxing the body from out here. But yeah, I was just thinking about like rhythms of the brain waves and how maybe that would help support their motor control better, to relax their body enough to feel like they can be more in their body and have a sense of control over their movements. And
and so I guess I really want to stress that I'm not saying that I want to work on them to make them neurotypical. They have sovereignty too, but I just know that when I'm calmer in my body, I feel like I have more agency, more choice.
Yeah, and maybe not feeling, I don't remember what episode, but there was just a impression that there was the sense of being trapped, right? If you can't speak, if you're not able to make the words happen and express just the feeling like that, what does that feel like to be maybe feel trapped, or that there is no control? So
many of them say our bodies don't listen to us. It doesn't, they don't respond the way we'd like them to. So
it's interesting because I was just listening to Susie Miller, who was in the podcast episodes where she was using tuning forks. I think it was episode 5. And I recommend people go and check out. I'll put a link in the below of this video where she's talking about how with autism is a mismatch between the soul's vibrational expression and the human experience. And that what they're here for as a collective is for this ushering in of unity consciousness and the love and the frequency of love. But yeah, she was saying this is almost like they are the new human, what we're growing towards. And so we're helping each other. The physical part might be really difficult, but we can help on this other end. And it reminds me of, I think Eileen just shared this, Alec Zek from the Way Forward podcast. He shared this, what his reflection was on it. And it was very much similar, what he was bringing it down to, and something I had thought about too, which is our planet is so inundated with so much toxicity coming from every direction, especially frequency, the non-native EMS, all this kind of stuff is very disruptive to our systems, and it's could very well be part of the problem, the challenge that they're having. He says that maybe their existence is not just a challenge, but a gift, a reminder of what we have forgotten. So it's a total perception change, which I think is going to be most helpful in supporting them, just changing the conversation about it, changing the language, and just the way that they're teaching us in a lot of ways.
Oh, totally. Yeah. They have such depth and beauty, and it's utilized in their language all the time, despite huge barriers. It's like, wow.
Very poetic and just profound. Yeah. It is so beautiful. So we're talking about this big paradigm shift and bridging the gap between science and spirituality, challenging people's personal belief systems in expansive ways. And I love the quote that they give in the podcast, in the messages one, maybe it was episode 10 or the one following it, where they give just messages to the listener. So lovely to hear that. But presume competence in non-speakers, we are light workers.
Yeah, totally.
So just telling you,
Yeah.
straight out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I was listening to Bashar. I don't know if people are familiar with him, but there's a man that's been channeling for 40 years, and there's a lot of wisdom coming through this personality, Bashar. And so he was talking about some of the gifts of us future humans. He felt like a better word for than telepathy was just this vibrational attunement.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think that takes away kind of the spookiness of it in a sense too. If we're on a certain frequency, then we have access to information. And I think about the field is just full of information and there's information everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing as we're perceiving information.
Exactly.
And I thought that was interesting too. And I loved Anthony. He was in the recent one and he was talking about being a futurist too. I think that's where we're evolving to. And I think we'll be doing a lot more clairvoyant or telepathic communication.
Absolutely. I like the idea of changing words, and because it just dismantles whatever was attached to that, to redefine it, give it something new. Because it's true, it goes beyond people who are doing it now. Everybody has access to it. It's new. Even just with learning biofield tuning and doing distance sessions, all of a sudden a lot has opened up in what I can connect to and feel and sense and see. So it's not just me, it's happening to a lot of people, really.
Yeah.
Their abilities are just starting to come more online.
Yeah.
And so it's because we should be getting together and just playing around and experimenting. That was something we had talked about in the other discussions, was formulating a group where we could practice these skills and then also maybe set up a space for non-speakers to visit and calling it something else, but it'd be similar to this non-local etheric space where we can offer sound healing and see if they can come to us. If we turn the sign on and say, we're going to do this at this time, this day, and we're just going to offer some sound. See what happens.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. It might be a great invitation.
Yeah. We'll see how it develops. I hope people are inspired and follow through with them, because we can be inspired, but then it's the following through and taking action and going, I had this really cool idea, but I don't know. It's like, just go do it. Cool idea. Go do it.
Yeah. So I have a question. So is it a physical place or is it like on the hill where it's...
My thought was that it would be not physical.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't even have to be over Zoom in the beginning. Like we could maybe do not with the tech and just practice before, do our little session, and then check in afterwards over Zoom, maybe, and say, what did we notice? What was, just go around and get a take on. And it might have a focused theme. It's totally in the works. And so anybody who's interested, I've just been taking a collection of names and people who might be interested in joining that group. But
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. I did a little training. I've done some training in crystalline soul healing, and it's about addressing templates that are running, programs that are running, and working with them. And as I was learning it, I connected, she's a biofield tuner too, and we have a great connection. But the process is going in with an intention and then meditating. And she was in another state. And it was like we met up in a playground. And we were there doing stuff and having experiences and having imageries come in. And when we came back down and we checked our notes, it was like, whoa, we went to the etheric playground. So
that's
I know
exactly
it's
what
doable.
Susie Miller, by the way, she was sharing a story about one of the non-speakers sharing with her, come with me. And they went up.
Yes.
And I want to show you my art studio.
Yes.
It's just like this.
So cool.
And it was elaborate, very well created, right? It's obviously places you keep going back and you're building, and this whole other, it's fascinating. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and an interesting thing that Bashar actually said, if we're just opening things up a little bit, is that the difference between something that is real and something that is an illusion is that the illusion doesn't last. And so he's saying this is the illusion. And so we go to sleep at night in order to energize ourselves, in order to hold the container for the illusion.
Ooh, I know. Another reversal of thinking. Exactly. Turning things on its head.
Right. And I think about people like that have near-death experiences. it is crystal clear what they experienced and remembered and bring back, right? There's nothing about it seems to
It doesn't go away.
degrade. It doesn't degrade. So I'm like,
it's visceral. It changes their lives forever. They'll never forget it. Yeah.
So interesting.
So cool, Mary.
Yeah.
I have had a wonderful time sharing with you and talking about all this stuff. I want to make sure we get all of your lovely points expressed. Anything else you want to share with people before we close this out?
It covers a couple bases because it's about love, I think, and it's how light language is coming in too. Part of this transformation, it seems, as I observe, is just there are more people having access to this form of communication, which is considered multidimensional. And it definitely, in my experience, is a heart transmission. And I was taught it. My dog opened it up for me. And you know how dogs are just so open-hearted and lovely. And so I think it's a really another fascinating piece as to where we're going and how we're connecting and how we're getting beyond the limitations of language, which I feel daily, right? All of us do. I'm actually married to a Frenchman and I don't speak any French. Fortunately, he's got really good English, but there's just something in me that cannot make me learn that structure. I'm like, I'm going galactic.
Sending you messages.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's another interesting thing. And it'd be interesting also to work with these students and see how they engage with light language, because they probably like, but
for sure. There's a lot of layers into it. I don't know a lot about it, honestly. Or I know that some people are sharing that in the Biofield Tuning community. That's very curious to me. I'm wondering, how it connects and if it's a language maybe that they have that they know already.
Yeah, I bet they could tap into it pretty easily. Yeah. I've used it the way that I apply it, especially as an instructor. If I have a client that I'm pretty familiar with already, I say, I've got this thing I'm utilizing sometimes. Would you mind? And I think that's the appropriate way to do it. Because I represent myself as a biofield tuner and it's not something we teach. However, you know that once we get certified, we have many gifts that we bring to the table. So I just like to clarify. And I think it's fair for the person because it can be very strange. I'm very self-conscious of it still, so I don't do it a lot, but that's the way I approach it. And I think that's a good way just to inform everyone about what's what.
For sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. I had started learning about the Akashic records and opening the records and what is this? And wanting to play with opening the record formally while doing a tuning session. And what I came to find out was, or what I gathered on my own, was that we're already opening the Akashic records when we do Biofield tuning because it's their record. And so if I wanted to address it specifically with somebody, I would say, do you mind if I say this opening and closing prayer to open the setting? And it's just in a way to focus more like your intention as to what you're doing. It makes it very clear and clean what you're doing. Yeah. So light language, how does that work? Just give a little brief explanation to help we understand. Yeah.
So I suppose the best way to tell you is how it came through for me. And like I said, it was with my dog. And so I had this dog that felt like she was all heart. And I'm a person that does nicknames and that kind of stuff. I like playing around with words anyway. And so I noticed that I would just look towards her and then this kind of nonsensical stuff would come out. And I'd go, that's interesting. But I definitely felt some kind of heart transmission. And I was like, okay. And then I don't know. And then I ended up going and seeing a show about it on Gaia, which is my total rabbit hole. And it was like a whole kind of documentary about it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I think I do that. And my husband affirmed that, because when I fall asleep, I'm in this liminal place. I'll just start this. And here's something that's fascinating. I didn't know what I was doing for a while. And then one day I started noticing that these little, I call them like little bubbles of regret, would come up in my mind and my awareness, and be like, oh yeah. And you can be so hard on yourself around that kind of stuff. And so this little bubble of regret would come up, and I just go into light language automatically. And I just noticed that was a pattern for a while. And then I realized, I think it's clearing that. So it's really great for clearing.
Yeah.
Beautiful for that.
Okay.
And it can be done in speaking, in singing, in writing is beautiful. It looks Egyptian, and it varies a lot. Ooh. And then to me, I think that dancing, I think that there could be some kind of beautiful movement of it as well.
So it's not just word or sounds. It's almost like an automatic, because I do writing and stuff. And sometimes things will come, that's something coming through there. Or if you just.
Yeah, I think it's like biogeometry, because I was in the class getting trained with Jamie Price in light language. And I had also read about biogeometry some, which is if you're familiar with it, what's a great way to sum this up quickly? It's signatures of energy. Mm-hmm. And so they look squiggly and stuff like that. And one of the students in the class said, my husband wasn't feeling well, and she just did a light language transmission of writing and put it on his lap, and he felt better.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Something going on there. That's very interesting. I'm going to start looking into it more. It's another rabbit hole. Thank you.
I don't know if this was what you were intending, but I have a few places I've been poking around.
Yeah, no, I like it because I have so many other things that I get into as well. And I think they overlay and they intersect with all of this stuff. And so it's important to draw things in and not be so compartmentalized. Like, I do biofield tuning. I don't do this.
Yeah. And the other thing, looping back to that student that I worked with, no one knew how she learned to read. Oh, so that was another kind of gift of just like saturation, or they don't have to go through this. No. Like we do with a mental, I call it cognitive cranking, like we have.
That's a great description, right? The gears, the grinding. It's funny. It reminds me, I told my husband the other day, I can hear the grinding of your thoughts. It's just,
of course, we got the hamster wheels on the outside too.
He gets his head tuned every night before bed. It's wonderful. It works. It works. So many people have that. They don't know how to turn it off.
Yeah.
It works. Get in there and make good work of it.
Yeah, that's great. Keep tuning, because I know Eileen has said it's just quiet for her in there now, because she has had so many sessions. Yeah. So she's just been a constant state of quiet, which I think is our natural state.
Oh, boy, that would be nice, right? Nice. That's why I'm motivated. What would the world look like if we all had quiet minds and we were able to just tap in?
Yeah. And maybe taking it one step forward, I think that this telepathy thing, or just being able to be revealed, then there's truth everywhere. I used to think about that, like the thyroid. When we speak our truth, we support our thyroid system. So our body knows the frequency of our truth. Yeah. If it was only truth, I don't think we'd go to war. But it would be interesting to be in a world where there's no non-truth.
Yeah, that's something to really just play with, even in your imagination. What would that look like every day if I resonated that truth into my body, and then it radiates out? It's an effect where the fields will be like, I want to be my truth. She's in her truth. That looks fun and feels good. Let's do that. Yeah. Before
Biofield Tuning, even in 2016, I distinctly remember saying to myself, I'm going to speak my truth more. And it wasn't like I was being deceptive or anything. I was just a little cards closed. And I said, I'm going to do that more. And it was not to be confrontational or anything like that. It was just organically, I'm going to share my approach to things, because it's different, I'm noticing, than a lot of people. And it was so pleasantly surprising how well it landed. And I think that people love seeing people in their truth and their integrity, because we we have so much confusion
Contagious.
because of what they've done, what's happened to truth consciously, taken it and twisted it or whatever. I think an important thing is it gives them permission to speak their truth also.
Yeah, exactly. It's supportive in that way, and it encourages people to just be themselves, say what you need to say. You're going to feel better if you say what you need to say. It's true. Better out than in.
Better out than in. Yeah. I love that you're doing this work that you're doing, getting it out there in the ethers, connecting with people, having conversations.
It was something that came to me. Maybe that's what happened with the telepathy tapes. It just moved me to do that. And it's helping me feel more strong in myself, even just like I can talk to people. I can do this. I like talking to people actually, and this is fun. And it takes the pressure off when you do things because you love to do it and it's fun. It rewards you energetically differently. And so there's a value to it. And I think it's great to support everybody in the whole, let's lift up Biofield Tuning together and support each other in that way. Yeah, I'm rural too. I live really far out. I've done mostly distance work, and I probably won't have that brick and mortar kind of tuning set up. I'm really dynamic. I have lots of projects. I do farming. I'm doing real estate. I'm doing so many things. So this is, it's keeps it in its place. It's fun. I don't have to rely on it to pay anything. I do other things for that. And so I love that I've come to this place with Biofield Tuning where it just takes the pressure off. I can just awesome. Do it when people come to me naturally, organically and magnetically. And then if it helps support other people, that's great too. There's so many different types of Biofield tuners out there. Go get to know them, find the one that works for you. Some of them are into astrology. Some of them are into sacral womb stuff. It's just, there's something out there for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. In that community, one of my superpowers, because we all have them, is connection. So I love that you're doing this. You guys, if you don't realize this, the Biofield Tuning community is amazing. And I utilize it because I travel and I'll connect with tuners all over the place and have an amazing time doing that. So it's what a gift. I mean, do you know how hard it is to meet people? I have couples, young people, like how do you connect just to meet people and make friends? And here we have this amazing resource that connects us in this way, but far beyond. It doesn't, we're not limited to it either.
I see in the future, maybe like a Biofield Tuning retreat or something, like tuners getting together maybe.
That would be great. I have been praying. I was like, I want it for the instructors first. We've been working so hard and it keeps getting pushed off. I think it's now going to be April 26th. April of 2026. So, it was going to be this fall. But yeah, I think, but there's going to be an aspect to it, ideally, that it's both. So it will be for the community first, and then we'll have our time together as sisters. Either That's way, something for everyone would be great.
For sure. Yeah. It's very important. I look forward to that day, maybe. Other practitioners can get together, and I hope you guys get together more regularly as teachers and just take that time to do it for yourself.
It's been fun going back to in-person classes. I'm gonna leave Saturday to get down to California to do one in San Diego with Lori and Marielle.
Fun.
And then we're starting the ones in Oregon, which is great for me. It'll be Jillian and Matt and myself there's 3, so we're doing all 3 levels this summer in Sisters Oregon.
Are there any openings left? Are you all full?
I think so. I don't keep track of that so much. So you could check the website or whatever, but there's level 1, 2, and 3.
There you go, folks.
I think level 3 is in August, and that's who we're talking to here, I think, right? Practitioners.
Yeah, exactly. Practitioners you're doing, but for people that want to get certified, but that would be an option.
Yeah, we're doing all levels. So level 1, 2, and 3. We're calling it foundations, practitioner, and level 3.
Level 3. That I'm looking forward to that. I would love to come up there, meet everybody.
So August. If that works for you.
Yeah. Great, Mary. Do you want to share about your group tunings that you're offering?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I came up with something, trying to be a little creative, and I hadn't done much with group tunings. And so I was like, heaven's sakes, time to do it. And so I like to do it with a theme, and that's what I've done. So what I'm up to is, through my private practice, is a series of 12. So once a month, and it's called You Have the Power. And so we're going to start with the feet and go all the way up knees, adding in the high heart and the back high heart, and then finishing up with next in December, it would be then a sundial, bringing back the light. So I'm having fun with it so far. I've done just the one in January, and Friday I'm going to do the second one, but they're all archived. So if you've missed, you haven't really, because they're archived. So if you are interested, you can certainly join the collective this tuning, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty uplifting. I'm going a little bit towards the statements of stabilizing statements that Eileen has been working with that are that 180 twist about the positive aspects of the field.
Neat. That is something very interesting to look forward to. And the group tunings are cool because you can be at home, you can be in the comfort of your own space, you can wear your pajamas and be in your bed. And they're reasonable. They're reasonable, and it's a great option.
Yeah, it is a heck of a deal because my one-offs are typically 144. And so for the whole series, it's 144 for 12 sessions, which is pretty amazing.
Good. Yeah, I like how you did that 144 and 12.
Why not?
With the numbers.
Yeah, fun with numbers for sure.
Great. I'll put all of that information in the description below so people know how to get a hold of you and sign up for that if they'd like to. And then links for Biofield Tuning if people are interested in doing practitioner training in person. I would definitely go up there and hang out with Mary in Oregon or down in San Diego.
Yeah, Jillian and Matt are really a great. I think we're all going to have a lot of fun. So you're all about that.
For sure. Yeah.
Plus learning, of course.
Yeah, I love that. You guys have bubbly personalities and definitely keep it fun. I super appreciate you coming on and chatting with me about all these cool things.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a lot of interesting perspectives. It was fun gathering them together, and I hope it made sense. But I think it's getting more fluid and it's fun to open up to. So thanks for the format to do that.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Yeah. All right. You have a lovely evening, and we'll get together again some other time, hopefully.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Bye.
Honored. Bye.